Today, we're going to dig into a pretty radical idea. What if everything we've built, our cities, our agriculture, our entire way of life, what if it isn't really the result of human genius, but more of a lucky break, a fluke in the Earth's climate? Let's get into it.
This quote right here really sets the stage. This isn't a story about humanity going extinct. Nope. It's a story about timing and just how close we came to showing up to the party way too early or so late that it was already over. Because really, the entire story of our world, everything we've ever accomplished, it all hangs on this one critical thing. That moment when the planet's totally chaotic climate finally settled down, it gave us the window we desperately needed to even begin. We love to think of history as this grand tale of human ambition and ingenuity. But what if the biggest player in our story wasn't us at all? What if the stage had to be set perfectly before we could even say our first line? So what was the real problem here? Well, by the end of the last ice age, humans were, for all intents and purposes, ready. We had the potential, the hardware, if you will. The problem wasn't us. It was the world we were living in. For starters, we had language. And I'm not talking about simple grunts. We had the ability to share complex ideas, to coordinate, to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. We were also fantastic tool makers. We could shape stone, bone, and wood into whatever we needed to hunt, to build, to just survive in a really tough world. And this is a big one. We had complex social networks. We knew how to work together, how to hunt as a team, and how to share what we learned. All the ingredients for building something bigger were already there. And this right here really lays out the whole conflict. On one side, you've got humanity, with all the right tools for the job. The hardware was ready to go. But on the other side, you have the world itself. And it was just unstable, unpredictable, and completely unreliable. This brings us to this specific period called the Younger Dryas. And you have to understand, during this time, the climate was so incredibly wild that planning for the future wasn't just difficult, it was dangerous. It was a mistake that could get you killed. I mean, think about the basic loop you need for a society to grow, right? You plant, you harvest, you store, and you repeat. But that entire cycle just breaks down in a world where you can't rely on the seasons. Why would you plant crops if a freak winter could just show up overnight? Why build a permanent home if your food source could just migrate away and never come back? So here's the key takeaway. Progress wasn't stuck because we weren't smart enough or skilled enough. It was stuck because you just can't build a complex society without trusting your environment. You have to believe that tomorrow is going to be at least kind of like today. And then something amazing happened. It was quiet. There was no big announcement. The instability just stopped. The planet's chaotic climate finally stabilized. It wasn't some huge dramatic event, but this quiet little shift changed absolutely everything. Now, what's so wild about this timeline is the perspective it gives us. For over 100,000 years, our planet was just a mess of instability. Our current calm period, the Holocene, it only started about 11,700 years ago. In the grand scheme of things, that is a tiny, incredibly rare window of peace. And the way humans responded to this new stability, it wasn't gradual. It was explosive. The second the world became predictable, people started doing things they had never, ever been able to do before. For the very first time, people stayed in one place. They started building things to last. They began investing in places, confident that those places would still be good to live in tomorrow, and the next year, and the year after that. They switched from a life of constant movement to a life of settlement. And this is the core argument, right here. This massive shift in human history didn't happen because we suddenly got smarter. It happened because our environment finally gave us permission. The real catalyst wasn't us. It was the planet finally calming down. So this leads us to a whole new way of looking at our modern world. We usually see civilization as this great achievement, the end goal of all human progress. But maybe it's something else entirely. We're always taught that farming created civilization. But this whole idea flips that completely on its head. Agriculture wasn't the cause of civilization. It was only possible because the newfound stability made it a gamble worth taking. So here's a new definition for you to think about. Civilization isn't an invention. It's a side effect. It's what happens during a brief, rare geological window, when the planet is calm enough to let us think long term. And from this point of view, all the things we think of as these huge human breakthroughs, farming, cities, massive monuments, they weren't the causes of progress. They were the results. They were the totally logical next steps for a species that could finally think beyond just surviving the day.
So, what's the big lesson here? Well, the Ice Age teaches us something really important, something we might have forgotten. Our entire world is built on the idea that this stability is going to last forever. But the planet's history tells a very different story. Stability is temporary, it's conditional, and it is absolutely reversible. The Younger Dryas wasn't some story about human failure. It was a really powerful reminder that our progress, our history, our entire complex world, it all exists only because the planet allows it to. Our story only happens when the planet cooperates. And that leaves us with this final, really big question. That lesson from the Ice Age, it's not something we chose to ignore. It's a lesson we never even had to learn because the world got calm and just let us do our thing. So what's really driving the story of humanity? Is it our own ambition, or is it the incredibly rare environmental opportunity that made all that ambition possible in the first place? It's definitely something to think about.